Hi, I'm Rick Tobin with Premier Hotel Realty and Pompano Beach Happenings, and I wanted to find out a little bit more for myself and our community about what's going on in Atlantic Boulevard near I-95. And for that reason, I have on this call, on this recording, some guys that are very involved behind the scenes and what's going on. And I want to introduce you to Nguyen Tran, who's with the city, and he can tell you a little bit more. Nguyen, tell us what's going on, and who are you and what are you doing?
Thank you, Rick. My name is Nguyen Tran. I'm the Community Redevelopment Agency Director. So I'm hopefully this interview here and this recording will help those out there that don't understand the project of Atlantic and Dixie and why we're doing this. This project started in the CRA 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. We've been working behind the scenes trying to get the project you see before you, but we understand that a lot of you that are impacted by this project really don't understand why we're doing it, what the vision is, and hopefully I brought our experts on board to help explain to you, give you a little background, and also where we're going with this project. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to our experts, Joaquin and Paul Kissinger.
Thank you. My name is Joaquin Vargas. I am a senior transportation engineer with TrafTech Engineering. I have been conducting traffic studies in South Florida, particularly in Broward County, for over 30 years. And I've been doing significant traffic work also on Atlantic Boulevard for over 10 years here in Pompano Beach.
Hi, I'm Paul Kissinger. I am the landscape architect and urban designer that has been involved with this project for, like Joaquin, over 10 years. I was a senior principal at EDSA, the firm that did all the work at on the east side of Pompano on the beach. You can see that behind me. And was there for actually 31 years in Fort Lauderdale. I've done work all over the world. Urban design work in Florida and China and Vietnam and Kentucky and a number of places across the world, and have been fortunate enough to do enough work in Florida to see the fruits of that labor and that working with the communities to see, big major changes that can happen in communities that the way I look at it is really makes the world a better place to live and improves the quality of life. So I thought I would, Rick, you talked about, why are we doing this? What is this all about? And, it's all about redevelopment. And as you look and, redevelopment, I've been accused of using too much planner speak. So I'm going to try to, kind of simplify taking out some of the jargon. But when I talk about redevelopment, there is a section of Pompano which is west of Dixie, north of Atlantic, south of MLK, and that's just a portion of the Northwest CRA or Community Redevelopment Area. That is what we call blighted, meaning that there's crime, there's not great lighting, there's derelict properties, there's vacant land. The tax base is not very good at all compared to other parts of the city, and it's the proverbial difficult part of the city that's been behind places like the beach, as an example. So in actually 2007, there was a workshop charrette that one of the leaders of the EDC, Economic Development Council, held about we need to change the face of our city. We need to have a downtown. We don't have a downtown. We have a city hall, and we have some historic properties in Old Town that are derelict and not a lot going on at all there. And so this area in the Northwest can really become an economic engine for the city, which the economic engine means jobs, opportunities for training, opportunities to better oneself, to improve the quality of life of the individual's life within that neighborhood, and bringing businesses in and real estate development in is the key to redevelopment. so that vision started in 2007. In fact, I was told today, and I didn't realize this. The very first thing that started kind of the redevelopment idea was this workshop and putting a green market in Old Town. That's what started it, is to get people used to coming to Old Town in 2007, and that's certainly grown, and traffic circulation has changed in Old Town. We've got the Fire Plaza now that's out there. The streetscapes have been improved. And so while these things don't happen overnight, in fact, I can tell you the beach took, at least 10 years, if not longer. And we finished the streetscape project in 2012. And so if you look at the development on the pier, that's just finishing up now. But I got to tell you, the redevelopment on the pier and around the pier never would have happened without doing that initial streetscape. And we had a lot of people that were yelling at us about, oh my gosh, the cars are going to run over the kids, and we have to have our parking lot at the end of Atlantic on Pompano Beach Boulevard. And how can you put parking on Pompano Beach Boulevard when it was taken off and at an earlier level? And that street it's 60 foot wide, and people were going down it at 50, 60 miles for that 3,000 feet that it was. In fact, one of the things, Rick, what I'll do is let me show you what that used to look like back in 2011. So hopefully everybody can see that. This is the end of Pompano Beach Boulevard. And everybody said, oh, you can't take this parking lot away. All the businesses are going to fail, and you just simply can't do that. Well, I've been doing this for a long time, and we said, no, that's not going to happen. And this is what it looks like today. I think everybody's familiar with this. We don't have parking here. We have parking that's down the street, and this is incredibly successful. So it takes time, and it takes vision. And Joaquin and I and Nguyen have been trained in urban design and planning and looking forward. And it's our responsibility to do our best to kind of describe what that vision is.
So I hear a lot of people talking now about traffic and issues, and they can't get through the intersection. What is the vision for the area along Atlantic Boulevard?
So let me show you one other image, because this will help preface what we're trying to do for the innovation zone in the downtown. So this is another image that is on Atlantic Boulevard, but is east. And can you maybe you can't see my screen? Let me try that again. Okay. So this was Atlantic right by Harbor Village. And, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lanes of traffic. And when we looked at narrowing this down, and we got a lot of public outcry on that, this is what it looks like now with 2 lanes, and Harbor Village has redeveloped. So what we're looking at doing when we have redevelopment is there are several steps to that, which is planning, regulatory kinds of improvements and changes, meaning like codes and design guidelines. But then there's public infrastructure that needs to happen, which is streetscape. So that streetscape is that first signal of physical improvements that shows the real estate development community that the city is serious about redevelopment. We're talking about a lot of jobs. In fact, and I think you just sent me something the other day that we're looking at, a lot more residential units that are going to be there, that will be apartments and condos. We're looking at a significant amount of commercial and general businesses. We're looking at a significant amount of office, hotel rooms, community facilities, and parking. And so all those things go together to create what we say is a vibrant downtown. One of one of the most important things, speak of another city, again, not that we're trying to emulate that, but one of the biggest moves that Fort Lauderdale did in their downtown was, one, get rid of the parking requirement, and they built a garage. Two, they allowed for, they lured businesses and allowed for high-rise development in the downtown. And in the last, I'd say probably 10 years, they then added residential. Because what you don't want to have is a downtown that it's busy from 9 to 5, and then it's a ghost town after 9 and on the weekend. So that's why there's this mix of uses, which is so important. And part of that initial that initial redevelopment, I'm looking for something else I want to show you, is that streetscape. And I think you've probably seen this image before, but this is what we're looking at for the streetscape environment. One of the first things that we have to do is change the character of the roadway. By changing the character of the roadway, again, that allows the development community to say, wow, we're looking at changes. The pier project never would have happened if we didn't do Pompano Beach Boulevard first, and that was done in 2012. So this Atlantic Boulevard section in Dixie is part of changing that character. And it also, by changing the character, we're making it safer. People have heard me say that the intersection of Dixie and Atlantic is twice as unsafe as other intersections of similar size and character, I think, Joaquin, in the county, if not the state.
That's in the state of Florida.
In the state of Florida. So that's not good. And so you can see on this, we've got 3 lanes of traffic that are coming eastbound, and we have 2 lanes of traffic that are going westbound. And this just shows the existing development that's there, and it doesn't show what can potentially happen, as I showed in the video. So, but this changes the complete character of the street. So I know that's been a long answer, Rick, but
so Paul and Joaquin, so one of the things I see here is you also have a wide pedestrian and bicycle walkway. And of course, my generation is dependent on cars, and we believed in cars, and everybody got their driver's license when they're 16 on that day. But the world is changing now. And I know that Newen, when I heard your presentation, I was particularly impressed by the forward thinking. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
So redevelopment, and you've heard it before, doesn't happen overnight. This is very long term. Typical redevelopment projects are 15, 20, 25 years out, but they always start with the infrastructure in the streetscape first. So that helps us define the capacity and the future development. The hardest part of redevelopment in this job, in planning and so forth, is the people that are impacted and the people that are in charge is current. We aren't designing roadways or building development for this generation. I've always said it, that we have to be forward thinking. We have to look at the development trends and who our future customers and citizens will be. We're developing this and redeveloping this for the future generation, for your kids, not us, because we have a different mindset, and the development patterns now are not going to be the same in the future. You can look at the needs of this generation. Your kids now, they don't want to drive. They have the least number of driver's license out there. They like to carpool. They like to Uber. They like to order from Uber Eats or DoorDash. They are a generation that is very less dependent upon cars. So, we can't be making roadways wider and wider because there's future generations, whereas that future generation doesn't want cars. They don't want that responsibility. They buy into communities. So if you do just a discussion with your kids at the dinner table, those kids, your kids, are going to want to buy into communities. They want to come in there and pull up their phone or their app and see what is happening on the weekend. They don't want this large room of apartment that we want. We want more space than they do. They want less space so they don't have to clean, so they can be out in the community doing stuff, being at events. So, like I said, the hardest part of this job is to convince the current population that it's not for them, it's for the future generation.
That's funny because I'm old enough to have seen Paul talked about blighted areas, and I remember Fort Lauderdale Beach that EDSA did a work on. I remember South Beach in Miami was blighted at one time, and I started my career on Brickell Avenue in Miami, and like Paul said, at 5 o'clock everybody was gone. There was one restaurant open at night. And now people, they like the apartments there, they live there, they stay there. So the population now that just sees traffic, all we see is, hey, how long does it take us to get to 95? So it's exciting for me to hear you guys, the forward thinking about what you're planning for 10, 20 years. Of course, we got to get through the next 3, 4, 5, yep. And people are concerned about that. But I see this beautiful picture behind Paul of the fishing village, which was nothing like that just a few years ago. And of course, everybody was up in arms about, you're going to attract all these people to the area, and we're never going to be able to get around. But you guys like you figured out the parking situation, the traffic situation, and we're seeing a lot more of the Ubers that didn't even exist not too long ago. Self-driving cars are looking like they're going to be here before too long, and you're not going to need those big cars that we're all used to.
Right. And a good example of that, Rick, is look at, we work with the city in unison to solve these future parking problems ahead of time before they become problems. So when you look at what the city implemented with the circuit transit and the golf cars, that's an idea to get people out of their cars. It's free to the residents of Pompano in certain areas on the beach side, so they don't have to use their cars. So this type of forward thinking in the city is something to really be proud of, because everyone that is in charge has that forward thinking. So, all I ask from everyone is just give us a chance, because you see the proven track record of what happened on the beach, what happened on the east side of Atlantic. That's going to happen here with this team as well. So it's going to be different. There will be less dependency on vehicles.
And what's exciting to, I'm sorry, if I could just get in 1 second on what Newman's just said, is what I see, because I sell hotels, and I see the attraction to our area of not having to rent a car. The hotels don't need as much parking. People are coming in town. They want to walk around. They want to go to restaurants. And frankly, for every dollar that comes into a hotel, there's 3 meals a day for each person in that room. They're supporting the Uber drivers. They're supporting the dishwashers, the wait staff, the musicians, everybody else. So this really, I see this as a huge attraction to our area. When the cruise lines are running, people are staying here for a week beforehand, a week after, and there's so much to do, and they save a fortune by not having to get a car and walking around, and all the free transportation that we have. They love it.
Joaquin, could you say a little bit about how DOT's actually changed and their methodology about complete streets and transit and those kinds of things over the past 10 years?
Sure. I remember when I first started my profession, DOT was always in the road widening and adding more lanes, adding capacity was their vision. But they have certainly changed to more complete streets, other modes of transportation, pedestrian mobility, bicyclists, multimodal facilities, and the like. I was involved in a project in Lauderdale by the Sea. And for those of you that have been there are 2 pedestrian crossings across Commercial Boulevard, which is a high volume, high speed facility. That would have never happened, 15 years ago. And the state allowed those pedestrian crossings because they understand, they recognize the need for a pedestrian traffic to try to reduce and not focus on the automobile traffic, but all the other modes of transportation.
And I think that's a really big deal. I mean, and trust me, as a landscape architect and urban designer, DOT is not the easiest to work with all the time. And for them to make a shift towards understanding redevelopment, understanding complete streets, they actually have a complete streets coordinator and design guidelines at a state level. And in actuality, Pompano Beach also adopted complete streets design guidelines.
Paul, what does complete streets mean? What is?
So complete streets is really an innovative way to look at a corridor that allows for multiple modes of transportation. So it's pedestrian, it's bikeway, and it also, according to DOT, what's so important with the complete streets is land uses and the land uses, and in our case, the redevelopment of those land uses adjacent to that roadway. So, and what that means is, you know, the bike lanes, for example, the traditional way of putting a bike lane in was to put a 5-foot strip that now they're painting green right next to the existing lane with just a white stripe in between the lane. I don't know about you, but I didn't ride my bike much because I certainly didn't trust riding on one of those bike lanes. And so the current thinking is, how do I get the bike away from the car, separate it with landscape, and actually elevate it 6 inches? You know, Joaquin and I had a conversation about a standard of safety. You know, so the standard of safety along a roadway at this point is you can go 45 miles an hour and have a sidewalk right next to that lane with only a 6-inch separation. That's an acceptable standard of safety. So now the standard of safety for bikes has changed, which is, you know, we want to take that off the street and put that behind a landscape and a curb because we got to figure out how we can facilitate that kind of multi-modes of transportation. And again, it's really hard now to envision that right now. I've heard people say, well, nobody bikes there now. Well, it's this chicken and egg. Why would you? Because you don't have the redevelopment that's happened and the land uses and the purposes. But in order to get those, you got to change the character of the street. And by changing the character of the street, we have the ability to move the bike lanes and have wider sidewalks. So it's a lot of moving parts, unfortunately or fortunately, that take a series of years in order to implement.
You know, Paul, in addition to that, complete streets is also the implementation of on-street parking.
Yeah.
But before, we didn't want parking parked on the street next to the travel lane. So that's also an additional feature that has been added.
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I've also heard another misconception that we're trying to turn Atlantic into Las Olas. Absolutely not. That is not what we're trying to do at all. If anything, we're looking at MLK to have that kind of a context and that kind of a feel. Right now, that's 2 lanes in each direction. And last I heard, there's not parking on the street yet. But that may be something that as redevelopment happens, just like in Fort Lauderdale, they experimented with that at certain times during the day. That's where we're looking at having that kind of vibrant downtown and then the interior of the innovation zone, not on Atlantic. Atlantic is still got 2 lanes of traffic westbound and 3 lanes of traffic coming eastbound. And we're not trying to turn that into Las Olas in any way, shape, or form.
So do you see the MLK corridor being something like maybe the Fat Village downtown, which was a warehouse district not long ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a trend that's been happening for like 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Where cities have gone into warehouse districts, and you know that's the hip place to be.
Yeah. So what you don't see.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you don't see that's happening also in the background is with this planning of the infrastructure and the streetscape, along comes the zoning part of it, the land use and the zoning part that helps create that feel and those uses. So what a lot of people don't realize is we did go in there years ago, about the same time with this infrastructure improvement plan, is to require that any new development on MLK, aka Hammondville Road, or Northwest 3rd Street, be required to put non-residential on the first floor. So, that's commercial, that's retail, that's restaurant. So any new development coming on there, they have to put that in there so that we can create that sense of context of here's your downtown, here's the walkability. We want to create that on MLK, not on Atlantic.
So New, and a lot of people are going to be displaced by this that live in the area. Are you guys taking that into account? Or you guys, what do you see for them?
In terms of displacement, the area is pretty much vacant. so that I could answer to is most of the land over there between Atlantic and MLK, all the way up to 6 between I-95 on the west and Dixie. The CRA owns a huge portion of it. We've been planning this and acquisition for over 30 years. So of that land, we own, probably 40, 50 acres of it, of the vacant property. So, our goal is always, redevelopment without displacement. We have so far put more residential units than we have ever taken out currently. So the displacement factor, it's going to happen naturally. And people say, well, you're gentrifying the area. You hear that term all the time. A lot of this happens naturally. And I can tell you because, I also hear that, look, our kids go away to college and they don't come back. Well, in Pompano, in that Northwest area, there's really nothing to come back to. What our goal is and what our tasks are is to build developments that keep your kids to come back to Pompano. Right now, it's not happening. So going back to that whole argument about gentrification and my comment about a lot of it happens naturally is true, because the pioneering families that settled in Pompano, over how many years, 40, 50 years, when their kids go away, there's nothing to come back to. So if they're not here, and that pioneering family hands down their property, most likely the kids are going to sell the property, right? So they're not here. We're trying to keep that generation back here. So we want to build developments that bring their kids back so that they can stay here and we can slow down the gentrification of it.
Okay, and on that issue, you may or may not be the person to talk about this and not to get into detail, but are there going to be tax incentives? Is this an opportunity zone? Is there, what's going to bring developers and besides confidence in what's going on?
Yeah. So a lot of is happening, in our forward thinking. When the Treasury Department came out with opportunity zones, we were the first at the table to designate this whole area as an opportunity zone. So Pompano actually has 2 opportunity zones. One is here, which incorporates the entire downtown, and we have one in the west along the turnpike. So that goes all the way up to Sample Road. So in our forward-thinking mentality, we have opportunity zones. We would love to see developers come in with opportunity zone funding. In addition, everyone's heard about the new infrastructure bill that was passed. So hopefully we can get the team together and put that solicitation out for a master developer to help us pull down some of that infrastructure money and get this built. So a lot of the misconceptions is, oh my God, is my taxpayer money going to this? And we're looking for a lot of the grant opportunities and the funding opportunities that doesn't burden our existing taxpayers.
New, you mentioned something about, the RFP looking for a master developer. I want to share something else with you guys. You know, the CRA has been looking at this as the opportunity for new businesses and targeted industries. And these are some of the targeted industries that they're looking at: aviation and aerospace, headquarters, manufacturing, logistics and distribution. But they've actually gone further and looked at specific companies that have targeted and have already, you know, talked to them about the opportunities in Pompano. And that's a very important thing as it relates to putting that out to a master developer, so that they can see that there's a market out there. There's people that are interested in the innovation and creating the downtown. Old Town has had some great success with some of the buildings. I mean, look at the Ally building, from what it used to look like to what it looks like now. And that vision, the culture also, in fact, when this presentation was put together, it wasn't even built yet. So there's been a lot of work so that the development community can come in and say, well, okay, you kind of lined up some potential industries for us, and actually some potential tenants, which is a lot of legwork that the developer doesn't have to necessarily do.
Right. So building on that point, Paul, and probably a lot of questions is this really going to happen? Are we going to get, that innovation district going? Well, the reason why we call it innovation district is because when you look at those slides, all those companies are in our industrial district already. So a lot of people looking at this presentation and recording don't realize that we have a lot of big companies in the industrial area. What we don't have is Class A office space. We don't have enough of the Class A office space. We have 31 million square feet of industrial warehouse space, but we don't have the office space to support all that industrial warehouse. So as part of this downtown, that's what we want to bring forward, is that Class A office. Now, that means that these are higher paying jobs. So without the development, there is no job. So what we're trying to create is that downtown. And you hear it all the time. Why is it so important for cities to have a downtown? Well, downtowns are the heartbeat of every city. That is your employment center, and hopefully all the higher paying jobs. That's your higher density residential. That's your arts, culture, entertainment. Those are all healthy hearts of every city to sustain the city. Pompano doesn't have that. So when you look at very healthy, economically vibrant cities, Pompano is trying to get there, and we have the prime opportunity to do that. So this innovation district really is our downtown.
What I saw from Paul's slides there is a lot of high-paying, technical, and jobs in clean industries. So for our kids, our grandchildren, to, as you say, to come back here and be able to have good jobs in that area,
Right,
is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, and the trend is Rick, that industrial property, and we have a lot of industrial property, they're no longer those heavy manufacturing ugly uses. They're turning clean tech. These companies are shipping logistics. They're all high tech, clean tech, but they want the space. They want the warehouse space. So we're positioned probably the best city in all of Broward County to take advantage of that.
And the one thing about the other thing about the redevelopment is, and I think actually would unfortunately, because of the pandemic, people are coming to Florida, and they're going to continue to come to Florida. And so, really the city can either kind of ignore that and get left behind, and cities that are stagnant are not productive cities. To have Fort Lauderdale 30 years ago, the beach was blighted. 15 years ago, the beach in Pompano was blighted, and it's now very different. So by moving forward with this changing the character of the street and the redevelopment, we actually have the opportunity to control how that growth happens in the way that we want it to happen. And I don't mean we as in Joaquin and I and Newen, but as the as the leaders of the city want this to happen in the redevelopment. So that's a very key point. They're going to come, people are coming. Growth is happening.
Okay, terrific. Well, we've got a lot of information out there. Maybe if anybody wants to make a final comment, and we can put some contact information or comments in
Sure.
the thread below. But Newman, any final thoughts?
You know, I guess one final thought, and I read a lot of the you know, social media posts, and it's like blaming our elected officials and you know, they should be impeached, vote them out. I think that's very wrong, because really, you know, our officials hire experts to help the city get to where they want to be. You know, honestly, if you want to blame anybody, it's the CRA is really the one to blame to start all this. You know, if you want to continue there, blame us for the success of the beach and how that happened. Blame us for why your property values are still going up. Blame us for now creating, you know, dining and other retail developments, so you no longer have to leave the city of Pompano. What I'm really saying is, look, there's a lot of good, positive things to come. It starts with streetscape. It's hard to picture that now because nothing is there. But again, it always starts with streetscape, and then the development comes after.
I'd like to ask Joaquin just to spend a couple minutes, because I know everybody is annoyed with the traffic. We know that, and let me just say, and I said this at the commission meeting, we're not happy with the way the traffic is operating right now, especially Joaquin as the traffic engineer, and that we are working on that. And so, Joaquin, maybe you could describe in just a little detail, you know, what working on it means.
Right. Well, as you said, Paul, we're not happy with the current traffic situation. I think I can summarize this whole area traffic-wise in two parts. We have the section west of Dixie Highway, and then we have the section east of Dixie Highway. I think that the section west of Dixie Highway, from I-95 to Dixie Highway, is operating pretty well. I think in some instances is about equal to or even better than before. The challenge is the section between Dixie and Cypress. We're currently working with Broward County. As a matter of fact, I have another meeting with them tomorrow. We are doing some changes, but these things take time. I've been in constant communication with them. We're going to try a new signal timing strategy that's probably going to be implemented sometime next week. And that's not the end of it. So we're going to continuously to try to improve on the situation until it gets to a point where I'm satisfied, and hopefully the residents of Pompano Beach also are happy about it.
And this is something that this is something that doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. And the reason for that is because before we implement any new strategy, we have to analyze it. We have to simulate it. There's a lot of scenarios that have to be tested. Then all these engineers will get together, we'll look at it. And then once we agree with the changes, then we implement the changes in the field. And then we have to test to see if what the computer reported is what's actually happening in the field. Are there additional strategies that can be implemented? We have a couple of ideas that we're going to be exploring to try to implement those in the next couple of weeks.
Great, thanks.
So I may be in the big minority, Joaquin, because when I look out at traffic, I see that everybody wants to be here. I see, especially in season when it gets heavy, and I look around and I say to myself, that's why my family eats. That's why our businesses survive, because they need those people to come down here. And you've got a tough job, because I imagine people don't call you up and say, hey, Joaquin, all the lights are working great. Everything's timed. They got to work quick. But they call you, I'm sure, every time something they get stuck in traffic, or, you know, no matter how wide you make the road, somebody's going to have an accident. Somebody's going to have a flat tire, and it's going to be backed up somewhere. But, you know, if we all keep in mind that traffic is there, because we often, I know I do, take it for granted that we live in paradise here, and people are saving up all year long to come down here for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks from somewhere. And I, for one, appreciate everything you guys all are doing to plan for our future.
Well, Rick, thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit more about the bigger picture, because I think unfortunately that gets lost. And it's helpful to get this word out as it relates to the vision and what we're looking to try to do. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all,
Thank you, Rick.
gentlemen.